for our first special interview. And so for this interview, we have a guest from Argentina this morning. His name is Nicolás Braessas, and we hear that his publishing company called Hwarang has been translating and publishing Korean literature in Argentina. So, we mostly hear about translated Korean literature works into English. So, of course, we're so curious as to what might have made Nicolás Braessas commit to publishing Korean literature in, of course, the Spanish language. So let's welcome him. Hi, welcome to the program.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Yes. So can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Well, I'm Nicolás Braessas. I'm a Korean-Spanish translator, also a publisher, and I am really interested in Korean literature.
Yes. And so tell us more about your company first, this company called Hwarang, and how does it exactly work?
Well, Hwarang exists since 2019. Publishing in Spanish from literature from Asia is not that common. We have like a little market from Japan, China, and now Korea. And I think that it was a good spot to, bring that culture to our country, to our continent, because we publish in Argentina and Latin America.
Yes. And so in terms of Spanish-speaking readers, how has the reception of Korean literary works been thus far?
Well, the reception was quite good. For example, Hangang the Vegetarian.
Oh, yes.
It was published to the first Western language in Spanish in Argentina. And it was like a really boom before the MAN Prize. So people is like really eager to read about Korea because, because of Hallyu, first it came the cinema, the dramas, the K-pop, and now people want literature. It's a really nice context to publish.
Right. But I'm really curious, Nicolás, how did you first decide, hey, I want to translate and publish Korean literary works into Spanish?
Well, it was because I was a reader and there was not much about it. The first Korean literature translation in Spanish, it was made in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So Korean literature in the Spanish language has not a tradition. It's like really, really new.
Yes. And so how did you come to learn about Korean or Korean culture?
It was really difficult in Argentina because before Hallyu, there was not many news about Korea. So I started the language in Koreatown in Buenos Aires, and I started to learn the language with a Korean that was my teacher. He was not a professional teacher, but he was really cool. And then when I learned, about 7 years, I went to Seoul to study the language in Seoul National University.
I see. Wow. So you made the trip all the way here to learn. And, I've heard many foreign nationals say, Korean is not exactly an easy language to learn. I mean, the reading part, maybe in terms of it being such a scientific language, but to be able to translate and to understand. And from what I see, you even translate poetry of Isang, for example. So what to you was the most difficult part of learning Korean?
The most difficult part for me is like the grammar is so different from Spanish and from English. It's like, Yes. It was like a mind-blowing. And of course, the vocabulary, because I know a bit of Italian, a bit of Portuguese, because all the Romance languages are almost all the same. But
Sure.
we don't have anything in common with Korea. So it was like studying vocabulary every day, and it was hard.
I see. Well, can you tell us about your favorite Korean literary work? Have you maybe even published it, or can you tell us about your favorite work first of all?
Well, my favorite writer is Park Min-kyu,
Mm-hmm.
and we are going to publish this year. So we are really happy for that.
Yes,
We are going to
yes.
publish Castella, a short
Mm.
story collection.
Yes.
He's really crazy, and I really like his style. It's like awesome.
Well, any last words in terms of sharing your obvious passion for Korean literature?
Well, it's really nice that, of course, I love cinema, dramas, and K-pop, but it's really nice to get literature from so distant countries because literature is really different from what we watch in cinemas and dramas. And
Yes.
Korean literary tradition is like so powerful. It's so deep, and it's like we are making history. It's like really nice to make a bridge between Spanish and Korea.
Indeed, indeed. Well, thank you so much for spreading Korean literature in Spanish, especially in Argentina and beyond. Thank you for joining us today, Nicolás.
Thank you so much, and have a good day.
Thank you as well. Once again, this was Nicolás Braessas, and we talked about the fact that, it's pretty common to hear about Korean literature being translated into English or other major languages as well, but, from Korean to Spanish now. So Hallyu is extending beyond K-pop, K-dramas, and of course, K-food. Great to hear.